Gracias. Vamos a tener...
Thanks. This is an exceptional panel because we are very interested in this matter. The motto of the Congress is everything is connected, and we'll speak of a green bridge. We are in the second generation of biofuels, and the panel, moderated by myself, Hector Huergo, Emiliano Huergo, my son, will join me, and he's involved in the story of biofuels for many years. We will touch on a crucial matter, which is seed oil, Camelina, compared to the traditional fallow. And we have that green bridge that has generation and great expectations. We will share the panel with Emiliano.
And they will explain to us about Chacraservicios and the work they are doing on Camelina oilseed. Carolina will explain to us joint ventures, for example, between companies such as Bunge, which is an agribusiness company, and the oil and gas business. This joint venture brings together, for example, Bunge with Chevron. Fernando Candia will give us a Bunge point of view, and then two producers that have very interesting experience in terms of growing Camelina. Peco Alonso and Lucas Andreoni. So what I'm going to do now is to tell you why I think I was called on to moderate this panel. So I will tell you a little bit about my background in relation to biofuels. My first contact with this segment was over 40 years ago in 1986 in a trip to Germany. We were going to visit machinery, to see different equipment, and they showed to us a yellowish liquid, and they said to us, this is what's going to power machines in the future. I smelled it. It kind of smelled like oil, but it wasn't oil. And they told me, this is canola oilseed oil back then. I took a look at it. It seemed to be attractive, but I forgot about it. And then I saw that in Germany they were producing modified engines to work with this fuel. Sanello brought it to Argentina at the time, and their engines were run on this biofuel, and they burned an awful French fry smell. But we had to change all the engine technology in order to be able to use biofuels. So a week later in Cima, Paris, in France, I came across Disertaron. It was a B30, and that was a totally different development. I was very much interested, and a couple of years later, I presided over INTA. I was the president of INTA, and I went to France to look for that technology. It was a mini plant. We wanted to bring it to Argentina in a container, but we didn't get to raise sufficient funds to pay for the freight. But people didn't see this as something that would work. And then it got started, and we had an act that was passed, the Act on Biofuels, and Argentina started this journey. And today, this is one of the main industries for Argentina, with ups and downs, with alternative politics. But Argentina, at the end of the day, became a major vendor of the main biodiesel, which is a traditional biodiesel, which is produced from soybean. The world goes on, and different biofuels are being produced using ethanol to substitute gas oil, and now this is the era of second or third generation biofuels that have specific features and which create a great expectation. But we need to move away from the paradigm of soybean oil or some other oils to move on to other special seed oils. And this has tremendous potential for Argentina, but I would like Emiliano to tell us a little bit about our present situation and our short-term future. Emiliano, you have the floor. Well, there's a shift towards airlines when it comes to biofuels. In the past 15 years, the airline business increased 70% their emissions because more and more people are flying. So if we see forecasts, we will see that the amount of airline passengers will double in the near future. And this is inadmissible in a world that has signed decarbonization agreements, including airlines. Of those emissions, 80% of them are for flights that are longer than 1,000 miles. Any other alternatives or new technologies, such as hydrogen or electric engines, are very far from covering this current need, which has to do with emissions and climate change. So we know that we will be using the same airplane turbines for a long time. They may improve their efficiency with time, but the technology will be basically the same. So we will need airplane fuel for a longer term. And this is why we're trying to go for biofuels or fuels with low carbon footprint. Airplane or aircraft fuel has to be highly sophisticated because a plane may take off in an area with high temperatures and very soon will be exposed to very low temperatures. It's a very demanding market, and not any fuel is suitable for the airline or airplane use. Technologies need to be approved, and many are already approved, but only one of them is profitable, which has to do with processing fatty oils or esters, HEFA, HDFA, and we found them in vegetable oils or animal oils. In order to be eligible, these ingredients need to comply with certain requirements. All these approved engines or biofuels can be mixed up to 50% in the fuel for an airplane. But raw materials need to comply with all these conditions. They can't compete with foods, they can't displace other crops, and they need to have very low carbon footprints. And this is why we started using these winter oil seeds, as we call it, that can be integrated to our crop systems at times where the field has no crops at all, right? And this is a tremendous opportunity because we cannot have these fallow lands in any place in the world. In Argentina, we do. We have thousands of hectares that we can leverage. This demand is going to grow definitely in the future, and we do have availability of fallow land. We're not thinking in the longer term, right? We would say that even next year in Europe, they will have the mandate to use biofuels. It's going to be a mandatory requirement. And in the future, 65% of fuel used by aircrafts will have to be biofuels. So this presents a tremendous opportunity. And this is the opinion of Chacraservicios. Federico, can you tell us what you're doing about this? Good morning. At Chacraservicios, we started developing Camelina oil seeds 20 years ago almost in the northern part of the U.S., and then in 2013 in Argentina we started adapting different varieties or species of Camelina. In 2017, under new management, we identified a tremendous potential to incentivize crop turnover. I'm a producer beyond my current role, but I'm an agricultural producer, and we're constantly trying to improve soils and improve the environment, and we're always trying to make our crops more intensive. And this is why Camelina oilseed, and maybe Lucas and Pecco will tell us more about it, present an opportunity. There was a market, a demand, a clear demand for Camelina, with Bunge and Chevron that started to support this project and got actively involved in it. Our work at Chacras is not about producing seeds. Of course, we need to identify the seed to different areas and lands, and we're working hard on that, and we need to continue working. But we also need to support the agricultural producer throughout the process. This is a new crop, and it has certain specificities, and we need to work with the producer, in particular during the first years, from the sowing to the harvesting period. And we want this to grow in the next few years. That's the main challenge ahead of us. Also, we need to start developing this supply chain, and we work on that at Chacras, and also Bunge and Chevron are working on certifications, which is a key aspect. And throughout the rest of the chain, we work with insurance companies so that they get to know this crop, and producers may take insurance. We work with banks so that they will finance these crops. It's a whole agriculture supply chain for a product that didn't exist 10 years ago to allow this to grow. Thank you, Federico. We will move on to Karina Crosignani. She's part of a joint venture between Chevron and Bunge. And let me share with you that we always saw the possibility of working jointly with the oil and gas sector, not against or competing against it. Good morning. Chevron joined this joint venture with Bunge based on another joint venture based in the U.S. Chevron set the goal of having a renewable unit. So you will see Chevron Renewable Energy Group. So we have 11 plants in the U.S., 2 in Germany, and some others around the world, where production is increasing, demands are increasing, and we see higher and higher demand for raw materials in the U.S. One of our main plants this year will multiply by 4 the demand for raw material. Today, they are using 1,000 tons per day, and next year it's going to be using 4,000 tons. Waste crops are very much desired, such as, for example, used cooking oil or cook oil, but we don't have large quantities of that, or tallow, for example. So our main objective is to look for alternative raw materials that will cater to the increase in demand. Our competitors are growing. We see more and more production of renewables in the U.S., so we see the possibility of having this oil. So what we do is take oil and transform it into a biofuel. So we're using oil as a new input or raw material. And you have a tremendous advantage. I'm from Uruguay, but Argentina and Uruguay both share this advantage. For example, at the Midwest region in the U.S., these crops will not resist because they have very low temperatures and snow. So you will see that the U.S. government is going to support renewables, and Chevron knows that we're using oil, so we also want to shift to renewable energies. So there are objectives that are already set for 2030. We have already complied with 1/3 of that goal. Demand is growing and will continue to grow. More and more industries are using renewable energies. Same goes for the aviation industry, for vessels. It's even better for them to mix virgin oils with diesel to power vessels. And we believe that this project offers a wonderful alternative for the future. So the more we have, the better. The competition is very hard, and we're growing in Chevron, but our competitors are also growing. So we need all of you to continue growing. Thank you so much. Now Fernando Candia will share with us the perspective of Bunge. Bunge is an international company with presence all over the world, producers of agricultural commodities and industrial byproducts. So we thought that this was a niche. Why is Bunge involved in this market? Well, it's no longer a niche. As Karina was saying, it is all triggered by demand. And we're not talking about national customers, but also international customers. And the agribusiness has a major role to play. We're just adding an additional step. Nothing changes other than that. Today, we process, we store, we transport, ship, and distribute products. We have a major role at the whole supply chain. Regulators are asking us to continue doing all that, but in a sustainable way. So we're shipping products, but we need to ship sustainable products through regenerative agriculture or by introducing new systems, such as the example of a Camelina oilseed. So how do we do that? How can we facilitate a process and be successful in incorporating sustainable attributes for the fuel segment or for the human or animal food supply chain? We got involved early in this process. We identified that in order to be successful and to gain scale, economies of scale, we need to have partners throughout the supply chain. We're working with Chevron in the U.S. We also have a joint venture in Argentina, and we have partnerships at the genetic research level, because in order to achieve sustainability, the whole supply chain needs to work together. Investments are necessary, and as it was mentioned before, plants producing oils use different processes. So we're investing in a plant in the U.S. with Chevron to produce this biofuel. The main objective is to serve our customers and to provide them the best products. But we also want to bring value to the agricultural producer, because at the end of the day, they will do the job, they will design or invest in these regenerative structures, so we need to support them so that they can achieve success. You mentioned the role of a producer, so we're going to go to producers. Lucas Andreoni, tell us a little bit, what is it that you're doing? What's your experience? What did you do well? What did you didn't do so well?
Thanks for the invite. As they were presenting, I picked up on two words: the opportunity we have as the agro sector. We know how we're working to make resilient systems, and we build sustainability. As producers, we can generate a new value chain. And when I talk about system sustainability, I mean in social, economic, and environmental terms. It's a new source of income, like the case of seed oil. We have many large surfaces where we don't have anything throughout the winter farmed, and we should harness that. That, in economic terms, it's an extra income that we may have. We've encouraged it in other Aapresid congresses, how to keep our plots green throughout the year, because that provides sustainability, bioavailability, better soil structures, better nutrients to our soils. So this is the rule, really. How can we make more? In winter, we have a very small surface covered, but with service crops, if you see, we have more and more tools to work with. So sustainability is an opportunity in the agricultural sector. We're at the right time to start with. Last year, we had our first experience, 700 hectares. Now we're following up on 2,300. The potential is huge. The crop doesn't require large amounts of water, so that's already an opportunity per se in many surfaces. In the south of Córdoba, for example, that's where we work. That's a feasible alternative to start working with these crops. You rotate modus of action of different molecules. When you have resistant weeds, you don't have rotation of active ingredients, and that makes it worse. So if you add rotation into the system and you add in your portfolio the economic analysis of the companies, we see that stability comes from the fact that you have a broad portfolio of products to sell. Our companies were just doing corn, wheat, and soybean, but now we have seed oil, we have other stuff like sorghum. We are building our portfolio, and our crops are noble. It's not hard to seed them. That's where companies support farmers so that they are not alone on it, so they get good experiences year after year. And this is a key year. It's a surprise, right, what the crop was. We had very strong, very close in time freezings, so the crop resisted. If you know me from my work, you know that we check the systems in production and we want to increase production. We want to add nature to the production systems. And we see how this has a strong impact in pollinators, in bee culture. So we generate secondary economies that you help with. It's a whole system that you bear in mind and how things work well. And as producers, we should make the most of it. I'm very interested in this, so I'm involved right away. I was afraid about harvesting. It's a small seed and I was worried about that. But, end of the campaign, it wasn't complex because you regulate the wind, you don't have any laws, not complex at all. So I think this is a simple crop, very good to start with. Again, we have many producers this year that follow our suit. They are learning about the crop. Chacraservicios has supported farmers to choose the right lot, because you need to select the right plot. So the company supported producers because the crop has many chances of success. There's broad surfaces that are vacant that we could be using. This is an alternative. Service crops to regenerate our systems. So I fully understand that this type of crop should be applied because of an opportunity, a great opportunity that is closely linked to generating sustainable systems. Thank you, Lucas. Many questions arise from your comments, but now José Alonso will take the floor. He has good experience, especially in the north of the country. We are in the center of Santa Fe, 100 kilometers from the capital city of Santa Fe. I was just in a meeting about designing rotation cycles. And I pick up on what the colleague here said. Argentina has 25 million hectares cultivated, 17 out of those of soybean, 7 wheat, 7 corn, and we have left how to cover winters, 6 million hectares in winter. So the question is, what are we farmers and agronomists doing to cover for winter, to stop the carbon loss, to capture water, to preserve nutrients, to improve the soils and empower the second stage campaign? Maybe we don't see it because it's just, we have naturalized the first campaign soybean. We say they don't have any winter predecessor, but you should know that that's a conceptual error because you're degrading the soil. Soils that in winter are not harvested, they are burning carbon, they are contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. They are issuing nitrous gas onto the atmosphere. So, agro producers and agronomists have a key role to play in decreasing greenhouse gas emissions, capture carbon in our soils and nitrogen, and linking to this with green energy. I mean, it's a perfect cycle. The challenge here, I can tell you about the many advantages of the crop. The challenge is to grow it in winter. And in Argentina, we're forgetting about that. There are 6 million hectares in the country that move on from soybean to soybean. That's a conceptual error. That shouldn't happen. You set the bar real high, don't you? Lucas, one question. You talk about the harvest. You were not afraid of the seeding? Because I didn't know the crop. It was something to pay attention to. Leaving the groove open, and we saw implantation was very good. After last year's experience, we were not afraid of seeding, but always be very careful. When we worked hard with service crops, we started using seeds that were so small that we forgot about what pasture was. We didn't pay attention to it. Soy, if it's wet, it will grab, corn too, but then you have yield losses. If you truly pay attention to those matters, the crop, you shouldn't be afraid of seeding it. Again, choose the right rotation. Make sure it has enough humidity and there is no risk. And something else we didn't mention with Peco, in our region, the date of harvest, we are harvesting November 15, when we are entering with late corn and soybean of first line right after it, so you leave great opportunity for rotation. That's what I was going to ask exactly. How can you anticipate the harvest? Because you agree, and in Santa Fe the same thing happens. Yes, the great advantage of cruciferous, especially Camelina, which is the seed oil, it has a very short cycle. Water consumption is very low, and it has a reticular special system. The roots are pivoting, and at the density it is planted, at that density, you can have 300 pivoting roots for square meter. There's 300 mini carrots in a square meter. That's roots in the soils. That's spongy soils, water, air infiltrating the soils. So, in a virtuous cycle, planting Camelina means capturing water for the next crop, because that fallow that you will leave behind, which seems labile and doesn't cover, it's 400 squares, 400 nails by square meter already grounding my soil. The first rains in October and November, if you plant Camelina on June 20, early July, in my area, it's already harvested. By November the 1st, I have 70 millimeters of rain accumulated between October 1st and November 1st. So I will seed on date with a good profile and with aired, oxygenated profile. This is not minor. You would say, what's oxygen for life? People may ask you. Well, Aapresid sees it as compactation, but look at the other way around. Human beings can be 40 days without eating, 12 days without drinking water, but only 3 minutes without breathing. Living organisms on soils, plants, the same happens to them. So if you don't have an aired soil, that's why you work with machinery to avoid that problem. To have aired soils, you harvest with high density of roots per square meter. That's the perfect profile of Camelina, the potential of second line soy. And ours, I would say we have 6 kilograms over soy per kilogram. That's an advantage. It's an additional $180. It's a margin on Camelina or on soy. But that's the reality. The great agronomical characteristic of Camelina: roots, better oxygenation of soils, better subsequent crop. We have many questions from the audience, and it is worth clearing all these doubts. About weeds. The plant doesn't open. It is not. You don't see that. It's you need to dry it, make it even, and you were wondering, you may be fearful of that. And it has good weed control as it covers the soil. Again, it's a crop I wasn't very familiar with. These days of heat, it tripled its size in just a few days. And when heat comes up, you will see how much it grows, and it competes against weeds. As we said earlier, because we rotate the action modes of active ingredients as pre-emerging ones, it becomes great, so that we avoid using always the same 3 or 4 that we use in corn and soybean. It's a product that controls weeds per se. So check out rotation to avoid weed resistance. And one of the tools is exactly this: keep the plot covered in winter. The first herbicide for a plot is to cover it with crops. And Camelina is a great crop. It decreases population, it decreases active ingredients, and so it's a great tool. When you think of change in agriculture, don't think there's a one-size-fits-all tool. You have many tools, active ingredients, other crops, other species involved to get to improve the comprehensive system. Peko, you talk about harvest dates, but when do you seed? In our area, it is optimum from June 20 to July 10. That's the best seeding window in Santa Fe central area. The cycles become shorter.
Puede alargar la trilla.
But before November 15, you continue. You talked about competing weeds. That's an agronomical advantage. Think about sowing. It means competing with covered soils. You're not just thinking about controlling weeds. If you start with clean fallow, you don't need to worry. The same happens for all other crops like wheat. But with the cruciferous and Camelina in particular, you need to dry up for threshing. But that is an additional element to control weeds, because whatever falls below that canopy will be dried. So it's a double inverted hit. You dry, conditions for seeding are there, and you start with pre-emergent in soybean. The same with rapeseed. Weeds that are below need to be killed so that you can have the pre-emergent. That is active ingredients and rotation. Let's now move on to the commercial side. Federico, can you tell us what the model is, the scheme? Are there any concrete benefits so that producers dare use it? Can you hear me? The commercial scheme we have, this is a closed contract with the producer. We are mandated to buy 100% of the production. We deliver the seeds. It's a swap. The harvest per kilogram of seed delivered. This year, the condition was we're finishing the sowing. It depends on the variety and the region, but from the end of May to early August, further south, and we're concluding the year with 30,000 hectares, 600 plots, 350 producers working with us this year. We tied the price of Camelina to the price in Chicago of soybean, $35 per ton, and this is all certified. These plots have to be adequate for certification. Certification, we do it ourselves. The certification is not a problem, not an issue, but it is a limiting factor for some plots. To close an agreement with the producer, we want the location of the plot. Through a satellite system, we check if it is certifiable, and if the producer can certify EPA measures for the U.S., that's where the producer should go to. There's physical evidence of that field that is under production. It's a letter of presentation, and we pay $10 more per ton based on that evidence. It is an advantage, and once the plot is certified for Camelina, for HEPA, the plot is certified and it can be used for selling HEPA, soybean, or anyone else that accepts the standard. Do you have set locations of receipt? Yes, in Ricardone, in Rosario, that's where we receive the production. We go to that plant. Up to last year, we were receiving in Pergamino, where we have the seed plant, but now with this volume, last year, as I said, it was 12,000 hectares. At Tancacha, Córdoba, we had a crushing plant by Bunge, but now we are focusing on Rosario. The crushing and the oil will be produced there. I believe we have depicted a very interesting picture of Camelina as an opportunity, and we empty the room in time and manner because we only have 20 seconds left. Congratulations to the panel. Thank you so much.